Being fatherless, growing up without that sort of figure, is one has to become one's own leader, so to speak. One has to become one's own guidance, authority figure. A woman can't do it. A woman can't fulfill the role of a man in a single mother household. It just can't happen. It doesn't happen. So one seeks outwards for direction, and in the absence of that, one has to look inwards. I mean, for me, my grandfather was to some degree a kind of a figure of authority growing up, but the generational gap was too broad. Thus, there wasn't any kind of emotional continuity. There was a stepfather. That didn't go well. There was. I don't want to bleat on about it because it just seems like I'm, you know, crying for attention. I'm not. But there was a stepfather who was violent and abusive, which was, well, unpleasant, and which still kind of has left its mark psychologically. I'm not saying I have like fucking PTSD or anything, but you know, aggression is something foreign to me. Violence. I've been in like those sorts of scenarios, but I don't handle them well, and like when it comes down to it, the physical problems aside, my brain just doesn't react to anger in a positive or I don't get flight or fight. I kind of I kind of just my brain just kind of there's a part of my psychology which just kind of shuts down and returns me to a kind of infant-like mentality. Like literally, it's just a split second, and then it's just kind of it's a total vulnerability, and I don't know how I could overcome that. I don't to be hardened up, I suppose. I mean, I would like to imagine in those sorts of situations, if I could choose, I wouldn't act like that. But the sorts of situations like that have occurred. Like, no, I won't go into it. But there's never been anyone to show me the ropes regarding anything, really. Okay, my mother has paid the bills and raised myself and my brother, and she's been a good mother, an incredibly good parent, an incredibly moral person. But that isn't the whole. That's not everything. One requires more than that. The only reason all this comes to mind is because something a friend just said regarding how much I self-flagellate. What was the terms he used? How much I scold myself for saying certain things, or if I can't speak properly, or lack of knowledge, or if I'm incorrect about something. I mean, this is because there has been the external reinforcing kind of facet for me. There's not been any kind of leader figure. So one has to moderate oneself. Constantly, I'm extraordinarily self-aware. I'm hyper self-aware, and that comes as a result of not having a stable source of external kind of guidance. So you have to, like a subconscious level, I suppose. You kind of turn inwards and have to regulate your own behaviour. And obviously this isn't just recent. This is going back to when I was very young. So a kid, early teenage years. You'd do stupid shit. But you'd have to do. I mean, that's just an ordinary young person thing. You do silly things to learn from them. But the thing with me, I would repeat things, and I wouldn't. It took ages for me to develop a conscious sense of what I should and shouldn't do because I had no external facets directing me. Yeah, basically. Obviously, I'm not at the age now where I can moan about these things and say, "Oh, this is why I have problems." I have agency, and I have agency now. I have logic and reason at my disposal, so I can't just bitch about having a bad quote unquote childhood as to why things are the way they are. But it's important because it shapes one's personality. It's also the reason I'm so sensitive. And I take criticism extraordinarily personally. Everything I take it to heart. Some of it I can overlook if I really force myself to, but I find it very difficult. And at first glance, everything is personal, and yeah, because I've kind of went inwards to search for the kind of guidance and the rest. So am I still kind of looking outwards for direction and for hierarchy and authority to obey and listen to? A funny example, over the weekend I met up with some guys, and the kind of the Brahmin among us, the kind of I think he was the oldest. I'm not sure about one of the other guys, but there were a few instances where we had dinner, and he was paying, and he asked me what I wanted, and I'd never been to this place before, and I said no, I don't want to decide. You can decide for me. And I was really resilient that I didn't want to choose. It was up to him because he was paying. I had never been there before, and all the rest of it. Now I eventually caved in and gave my opinion as to something I saw which I didn't look terrible on the menu. But all that is a reflection of my kind of. When I notice authority, I have to pay attention to it. It's why I gravitate to certain figures and obsess over them. Not obsess is a very strong word, but why I tend to mull over certain individuals again and again and again and again and again. Everler and Bowden, I know, but that's why. Because I'm. It's a fixed point. It's a fixed point that I can draw from. It isn't something fluctuating or subjective. And likewise it is with a few people I know personally, a few friends I have. I look to them and I look up to them, and I want them to guide me and to direct me. I don't want to, not that I don't want to think for myself, but I want to make sure I don't make mistakes. There's very little self-confidence, and whenever there is self-confidence, it's extraordinarily cautionary, and this can manifest in being sensible, right, and not taking risks. But so can it manifest in a complete fear of doing anything new, and of directing myself into unexplored territory. So, hold on a minute. Is this recording? I can't tell. Oh well. Oh, it is recording. Fair enough. But, It's funny because I'm still waiting for a kind of father figure. I'm still kind of there's still an expectation in the back of my head, which is like it's on alert for such a person. And so whenever I detect any sort of parallel in other people, whether dead or alive, I latch upon them, and I seek to draw as much from them as I can, and I analyse them very closely, even if I don't say much. I don't know how this will turn out. Yeah, constant self-doubt. And it's not like I'm an unconfident person. I'm not really. Um, I base my confidence with other people upon honesty. So I don't tell lies. I don't exaggerate. I don't make things up. I don't I don't claim any sort of high ground if I can help it, because therefore I can't really. If I'm wrong about something, it's okay. I can correct myself, and that's fine. There's no expectation of me as a kind of a know-it-all. I've been accused of that, and I don't like that at all. I very much dislike this the notion that I'm like that. It just seems really distasteful. But yeah, I base what confidence I have upon honesty, which itself is quite unstable ground. Not so much unstable, but vulnerable. It is a vulnerability because you can risk, especially in the sort of communities I'm engaged with, which are mostly male spaces. It comes across as weakness. It comes across as superficial or forced, like you're forcing yourself to be humble, I suppose. And then any honesty is kind of suspicious, or yeah, but then people become suspicious of honesty, and then that erodes that erodes the basis of one's confidence, and so forth. So I mean, and I could really trace all this back to a lack of a concrete father figure, or a leader figure, or a guidance figure, or indeed even a system to work within, parameters, rules, and guidelines for success, contentness, meaning. Yeah, I suppose this kind of came out when I wrote The Myth of Freedom, which is just a little article about kind of the modern understanding of freedom as always good, and where I would totally disagree. In fact, freedom to me means very little. Freedom is a very overused word nowadays. Because without freedom there are no rules, and without rules there's no meaning. There's no purpose. In a void, in a kind of freedom-induced void, there's no form, there's no shape. It's intangible. You cannot make sense of a formlessness, of a kind of free-for-all of do whatever you want. There are no rules, expectations, limits, all this sort of. And this is definitely kind of the standard mantra of the of a good portion of the modern world. And it's very much exemplified through being fatherless, through not having a father figure. Of course, I was birthed, but it was merely a biological process for me. There was nothing beyond that. There was nothing built upon it. So it feels extraordinarily inorganic and artificial and mechanized, like it was just a kind of an animal action through which I've been conceived, and There was nothing upon it. There was nothing beyond it. There was nothing above it. And especially not on the father's side. And that's important. As I said before, we're doing videos like this and recording it and putting it on the internet. It's a transmutive process. It's an alchemical process. I'm not doing this to kind of attention seek or ask for help or anything like that. It's a kind of positive exhibitionism for an alchemical reason. Oh well. Uh, what else could I say? We're going on like 15, 16 minutes. Yeah, I think also a part of it is why I don't like the idea of acquaintances. I am extremely picky with who my friends are. And I can never speak to too many people at once or have too many friends at once. So, for instance, I'll be talking with someone and all of a sudden they'll go out of the limelight for weeks or even longer. And that's only because that kind of slot has been filled by someone else, so to speak. I'm also I'm very trusting. That comes as a part of the kind of sensitivity to external stimuli and to potential external kind of positive reinforcement, because all that is a search for guidance in some fashion, because I don't have the potential within myself for it totally, even though in a kind of roundabout way that's all I have. So it becomes this kind of spiral of inadequacy until manifests does the kind of self-assuredness, which will come eventually. I know it will. It's inevitable. It's that, or I don't know. I'll probably kill myself or something, because I won't be able to do anything with myself in life if I totally lack initiative and self-reliance to some degree. Especially as a man, a woman can have no self-reliance and be reliant on other people. That's fine. That's how a woman is. That's her metaphysic. A man can't do that. A man who has to rely on everyone else for everything is not a man. He's lower than an animal. He's not even worth. There's no reason for him to exist. There's no reason for him to breathe if he has to rely on everyone for everything. If there's constant requirement for total externality, as a man, there's a metaphysic which is self-independent and reliant and the source of purpose, and it comes from within, not without. I'll leave it there.